It is 1982, behind the Iron Curtain, inside a locked Soviet laboratory. Russian scientists are leaning over a 58-year-old stroke patient. They spray a clear liquid up his nose. He has not spoken a word in 3 days. His right arm will not move. His doctors have written his recovery off. Within hours, he says his first word. His name is not public. The Russian research files call him Patient 47, and he is about to become part of the single largest peptide breakthrough most Americans have never heard of. The drug they sprayed that morning would go on to become one of the most prescribed brain drugs in Russia. The Russian government would put it on the same protected list as insulin, the list of drugs the country calls essential. Russian doctors have reportedly given it to everyone from stroke patients to fighter pilots, astronauts, and schoolchildren before exams. In America, it is banned. Patient 47 is not the only proof. In a 2007 study, Russian researchers gave Semax to healthy young men and put them through memory tests. The men on Semax scored 71%. The men without it scored 41%. Same test, same conditions. One spray up the nose changed the outcome by 30 percentage points. Now, ask yourself this. If that drug could bring speech back to a stroke patient in a Soviet ward and sharpen the memory of a healthy 20-year-old by nearly double, what do you think it does inside the head of a 42-year-old who walks into a room and forgets why? You know the moment. Someone asks you a simple question. The answer is on the tip of your tongue, and it is gone. You finish a meeting, and you can barely remember what was said. You used to be the one with the answer. But here is what your doctor will never tell you. In 2023, the FDA put this drug on a list called Significant Safety Risks. Your doctor cannot prescribe it. Your pharmacist cannot legally mix it. Any American compounding pharmacy that sells it can be shut down on the spot. No deaths in the medical record. No reported overdoses. Just a regulator that put it on a list of things you were not allowed to have. The name of the peptide is Semax, and the reason you have never heard of it has nothing to do with whether it works. This is the story of Semax, a Soviet laboratory that built it in 1982, a 2023 FDA list that buried it overnight. And an old word the drug industry uses for drugs like this, one word that explains why you were never supposed to hear about it. To understand what the Russian scientists put up that stroke patient's nose, you have to go back a few years. Inside the Institute of Molecular Genetics of the Russian Academy of Sciences, a team had been trying to solve one problem. Western scientists had already found that a small piece of a human hormone called ACTH changed learning, memory, and attention in animal studies. The problem was simple. The piece broke down too fast to use. The body broke it down in minutes. The team was led by a scientist named Nikolai Myaswerdov, and they did something smart. They took the 7 amino acids carrying the brain activity and added a tail to the molecule. The tail worked like armor. The body could no longer break it apart. Same brain effect, much longer time in the body. They called it Semax. Here is what made it different. The original hormone told the body to make stress hormones. Semax did not. All the brain effects, none of the stress, sprayed up the nose. Crosses straight into the brain. No needles, no injections, no stress response. And then they took it into the stroke ward. And the patient who had not spoken in 3 days started speaking again. In 2006, a team led by a scientist named Dolotov published a peer-reviewed paper in the journal Brain Research. One dose of Semax raised a brain growth protein called BDNF by about 40% in the rat hippocampus. Think of BDNF as food for the brain. It helps brain cells stay alive. It helps the brain store long-term memory. A 2005 study by the Ehrman Group showed that within 30 minutes, Semax was turning on the brain's dopamine and serotonin systems, mood, drive, focus. And then a group of Russian doctors led by Yevgeny Gusev ran the trial that changed how Russian hospitals treated strokes. 110 patients. Patient 47 was one of them. Sprayed up the nose within 6 hours of the stroke, given on top of standard care, Semax patients healed faster and had less stroke damage than patients on standard care alone. That trial, along with other Russian research, is why Russia approved Semax as a drug. And patient 47 walked out of that hospital speaking, reading, moving his right arm. Patient 47 was not the point of the research. He was the proof. The real question was what this drug could do to a brain that was not broken. Remember that 2007 study, the one where a single spray moved healthy young men's memory scores from 41 to 71%. Those men were not sick, they were not recovering from anything. They were young, healthy, fully functional, and a single dose of Semax still moved their memory scores by 30 percentage points. That is the part Russian doctors have been building on for 40 years. Because Semax does something no stimulant has ever done. Caffeine stimulates what you already have. Adderall forces it. Semax rebuilds the system that makes everything else work. No crash, no come down, no dependency profile in 30 years of Russian clinical use. It does 3 things to a healthy human brain at the same time. First, it grows new brain. A single dose raises BDNF inside the brain by about 40% within 90 minutes. BDNF is what your brain uses to build new connections, make new memories, and learn new skills. Exercise raises it slowly. Deep sleep raises it overnight. One spray of Semax raises it in 90 minutes, faster than either. Second, it sharpens the brain chemistry you already have. It does not dump dopamine into your system. It makes the dopamine you already produce work better. Focus holds longer. Mood stays steadier. That is why Russian doctors prescribe it for depression and anxiety alongside brain recovery. Third, it protects what you have. Semax reduces the kind of inflammation that quietly kills brain cells over decades. It is the reason the same peptide shows up in studies on Parkinson's, optic nerve damage, and Alzheimer's prevention. In plain terms, it is what a 42-year-old brain has been missing. Russian patients describe it the same way over and over. Clouds around their head peeling back, their eyes opening up, being able to see again, even on the days they should be tired. The kind of memory that holds the grocery list without a phone. The focus that holds through a 2-hour meeting. The word that was stuck on the tip of your tongue, now showing up on time. Faster learning, cleaner thinking, the sharper version of you that you remember being. You have tried things for this already. Supplements that did nothing. A doctor who handed you a prescription and a pamphlet. A shelf full of bottles that never moved the needle. And the Russian medical record shows 30 years of doctors prescribing it for exactly this. No deaths reported in the published Russian medical literature. No overdoses in the clinical record. The only common side effect ever noted, a bit of nose irritation in some patients. Russian studies are not held to the same standard as FDA trials. That matters, but the Russian studies kept piling up year after year, enough that Western scientists could not keep ignoring what Russian doctors were seeing. Which brings us to the question nobody in American medicine wants to answer. If this drug works this well, why have you never heard of it? In 1996, Semax was officially approved in Russia as a prescription drug for stroke recovery, vision loss from optic nerve damage, and certain memory problems. That approval was a big deal. In 2019, the Russian government put Semax on a list called the List of Vital and Essential Medicines, signed into law by Russian government decree number 2406-R. On October 12th of that year, Russia uses that list to mark drugs the country cannot live without. The government controls the price of every drug on the list. The government makes sure they stay on shelves. In simple terms, Russia does not call Semax experimental. Russia calls it essential. For 30 years, Russian pharmacies have sold it. Russian doctors have prescribed it. Russian brain clinics have given it to stroke patients within hours of the stroke. Russia treats it as essential, America treats it as a risk. Same molecule, same peer-reviewed research, different rules. The Peptide Black Book covers every peptide the establishment is trying to bury. Which ones are worth your money, which ones are a scam, and which ones actually deliver what they promise. $7, first link in the description. Now, about that crackdown and the quiet flip that followed. This should have been the moment American brain science finally caught up with what Russian doctors had been watching for 40 years. The moment the millions of Americans quietly losing their edge, their memory, their focus, their mental sharpness were handed a real answer. The moment your doctor finally had an answer for the brain fog he kept blaming on stress. The moment Americans got access to what patient 47 got in that Moscow ward in 1982. That is not what happened. September 2023, the Biden administration's FDA does something that stops the American peptide world cold. They take Semax, a drug approved in Russia since 1996, with a clean 27-year safety record and more than 100 peer-reviewed studies behind it, and they put it on a list the agency calls Category 2, certain bulk drug substances for use in compounding that may present significant safety risks. It is the pharmacy version of a federal no-fly list. Semax lands on it, along with BPC 157, along with TB 500, along with about a dozen other peptides. The filing does not list any deaths. It does not list any hospital stays. It lists risks that might happen. Janet Woodcock, the former acting commissioner of the FDA, publicly defends it. She tells ProPublica that letting Americans have it would be a disruption of the societal pact we have had since 1962. A societal pact, 27 years of safe use in Russia, more than 100 peer-reviewed studies, and the woman who ran the FDA is telling reporters that letting you access it would break the social order. The ban holds for 30 months, until April of 2026, when the FDA quietly publishes a notice. 12 peptides, including Semax, are being removed from Category 2. 7 days later, it takes effect. Their reason: the people who first put Semax on the list withdrew their request. The same people who called it a safety risk for 30 months quietly took it back when someone finally asked them to prove it. The whole thing folded, but the FDA has one more trick. Removing Semax from Category 2 does not make it legal to compound. The drug is stuck, not banned, not allowed, waiting. An FDA committee still has to vote on whether Semax and a dozen other peptides on the same list get let through or get sent right back to the banned list. At this point, you are probably asking the obvious question: so why was it really on that list in the first place? Here is what the FDA does not want you to know. Semax is old, too old. The patent ran out decades ago. That means no American drug company can own it. No American drug company can charge $1,000 a month for it. No American drug company can make the kind of money that justifies pushing it through FDA approval. The drug industry has a word for compounds like this. They call them abandonware. And Category 2 is the tool that keeps abandonware drugs out of the American medical system. Not because they are dangerous, because they are unprofitable. No patent, no profit. No profit, no trials. No trials, no FDA approval. No FDA approval. And the only legal way any American can get it is through a compounding pharmacy. So, in September of 2023, the Biden FDA shut that last door. And when the people who pushed for that ban were finally asked to prove it, they walked away. That is what withdrew means. It just does not make the evening news. While the Biden FDA was shutting down access, something else was happening. Western scientists outside Russia in peer-reviewed journals started running their own studies on Semax to see if the Russian findings held up. They did. Western journals have since published studies showing Semax helps brain cells form long-term memories in rats through the same BDNF pathway the Russians first mapped. A 2024 study by Inozemtseva and colleagues found that Semax acts like an antidepressant in several rat models of chronic stress. Then came the Alzheimer's research. In the last 2 years, peer-reviewed studies have shown something surprising. Scientists took mice bred to get Alzheimer's. They gave them Semax. The amyloid plaques in the brain The same plaques that destroy memory in Alzheimer's patients got smaller. These are animal studies. That matters. What works in rats does not always work in people, but the evidence keeps pointing the same way, quietly. In journals, the evening news does not read. Here is what most Americans will never be told. 40 years, more than 100 peer-reviewed studies. Russian government approval since 1996. More Western studies confirming the findings every year. And a regulator in America that decided for 30 months you were not supposed to see any of it. The drug did not change between Moscow and Washington. The molecule did not change. The research did not change. The rules did. And the rules could change again, sending Semax right back to the banned list before most Americans ever hear its name. The Peptide Black Book is the file most American journalists will never write. Which peptides the research actually backs up. Which ones the establishment is trying to bury. Which ones are worth your time. In one file, $7, because the peptides on that list today are the research they were hiding from you yesterday. Click the first link in the description. Save the file to your device. Do it before the FDA decides if Semax, BPC 157, TB 500, and 9 other peptides stay legal or get locked away for another 30 months. Because the next time you walk out of a 15-minute doctor visit holding another prescription that will not touch your brain fog, you will know exactly what they did not tell you. But Semax is not the only drug the FDA has buried. It happened again. Different drug, same playbook. Its name is retatrutide, and in the biggest weight loss trial ever run on a drug, it did what no drug in history had ever done. Then, the FDA sent 40 warning letters in a single day and shut the whole thing down. And the reason why will change how you see American medicine forever. Click the video on your screen right now.